And today's topic is, well, we're continuing with transformations. This is transformations part 2. And in fact, we're going to be spending the whole summer doing this very long topic called transformations. So, how much of you all remember the story from last week? I left you all on a cliffhanger and I didn't get a chance to finish it. But just in case you didn't remember what took place last week, you all, well, it's laid out in points there. You are a special detective who can talk to ghosts and spirits. And we were talking to a ghost called Sir Mondego Santiago. And his most prized possession, even in the afterlife, was this toy boat. And I had asked you all 2 questions, right? Now he's on the run from the law because apparently he killed someone in a bar in Spain, right? And he has come to Trinidad, or he's running away from his crimes, right? I can't remember where exactly he ran to. And the question was, why do you think the toy boat was his most prized possession when he was alive? And how do you think he met his end? Remember, he's a ghost, so he's obviously not alive. I want to hear what you all think again on the chat, right? Just, while we wait on a couple of people, why do you think the toy boat is so important to him? And let me know on the chat, how do you think he met his end? And then, of course, you're going to see the conclusion of the story today. So first things first, I want you all to do this question for me. Remember, we're going to need matrices to do transformation. So as a quick revision question, I want you all to multiply these 2 matrices and send the answer on the chat for me as revision. Remember, when you take a big matrix, that's the one with the 4 values, and multiply it by a small matrix, that's the one with 2 values, you are going to get 2 answers. Send those 2 answers across for me as revision. Good luck and try to participate as much as you can in class. So when you have to take the big matrix and multiply by the small matrix, remember last week I told you, you always look at the small matrix. And the small matrix has a value on top and a value underneath. We always pay attention to the value underneath. And I told you this, well, the underneath value today is value 4, right? And I told you to pretend he was Tarzan and he would swing up to the top. So -3 and 4 are on top now. These 2 values march across. So you pretend like they grow legs. I'm just drawing some legs here. The 4 and the 3 grow legs and they march across. Now, when they march across, the -3 will be on top of the -1, and the 4 would be on top of the -2. Those 2 values get photocopied below. So you see this -3 and 4? We're going to photocopy them below. Each pair of values, right? Remember, we are multiplying. We circle each pair of values. And we multiply each pair. Now, I think some people got tricked with the multiplication to 0. Remember last week I told you over and over, when you multiply anything by 0, well, it's 0. -3 multiplied by -1 is +3. 4 multiplied by -2 is -8. 0 by -3 is 0. 1 by 4 is 4. To get the answer on top, we add the 2 final values on top. 3 plus -8. Remember, a plus and a minus is a minus. So you end up with 3 minus 8, which is -5. To get the value underneath, you add the 2 final values underneath. 0 plus 4 is 4. Look for your mistakes, guys. A lot of people made mistakes, but I have a feeling it's sign mistakes. Like you forgot a positive, when it touches a negative, you get a negative. So look for your mistakes and let me know when you have rectified it. All right, so we're continuing the story, right? So remember, Santiago is on the run, right? So one night before, the night before his execution, this is in Spain, right? So apparently the policemen or the authorities, well, they found him, right? Because he committed a murder. But then on the night before his execution, he bribed the guard to help him escape and get on a boat that was headed to Jamaica. So he plans to run and hide and well, be a fugitive in Jamaica. But before he left, he stopped by his son's house. So he had a son, a very sad situation. Guess, well, you all can see who gave him the wooden toy boat. It was his son, right? So that's why he's so attached to his toy boat. Right, so after he got the boat, he headed straight to the port and left for Jamaica. Right, so this is his son's house here, and this is the boat. You'll see the picture there that's headed to Jamaica. Right, a very sad situation, but that's the story. We will continue it. All right. Do you all think you all can remember how to do this question from last week? Last week, we ended class on how to do a reflection about the x-axis. And there are about 3 ways to do it. The premise of the question is that if you're doing a reflection about the x-axis, remember this, I highlighted the x-axis, right? The x-axis is this red line here. I'll just write it in, right? And you are pretending that the x-axis is a mirror. And last week I explained that in a mirror, things kind of looked flipped or kind of wrong side, like your left hand is look like what? Your right hand. And if you are 2 meters away from a mirror, then inside the mirror, you look as if you are 2 meters inside the mirror. Which method would you all prefer to do this question? You all want to use the common sense method or you want to use the matrices method? Now let's vote on it. Which method would you like to use today to do this question? So I'm going to use the easy method first, right? So let me write down point A. Right now, point A is how much? Minus 12 minus 2. Point B is how much? Minus 2 minus 2. Point C right now is minus 4 minus 8. To me, if I were in the exam too, I would use the easy method, right? Especially if the examiner didn't tell me, hey, which method to use. I just gonna go to the easiest method. If you look back at your notes last week, right? Whenever you are reflecting something in the x-axis, which value becomes the opposite? Does the x coordinate become the opposite or does the y coordinate become the opposite? It's clear in your notes from last week. Let's turn back. Right, and you all are shouting on the answers on the chat. It's the y coordinate, right? This is a reflection in the x-axis. And when we get our answer, it should look like a reflection in the x-axis, obviously. Remember, the first coordinate is x, the second coordinate is y. All points will have an x coordinate and a y coordinate. A x coordinate and a y coordinate. The x coordinate is always stated first. The y coordinate is always second. So if we apply the note from last week, if we reflect A in the x-axis, it becomes A prime. Remember, you can't call it A again. You have to change its name. According to the notes, the x coordinate will remain exactly the same. So the x coordinate remains minus 12. It's the y coordinate that becomes the opposite. Right now, the y coordinate is minus 2. So when we reflect it, the y coordinate becomes the opposite, positive 2. And it's a very simple process for the rest of them. When you reflect B, you will get B prime. Once again, the X coordinate, which is -2, remains the same, but it's the Y coordinate that becomes the opposite. Right now, the Y coordinate is -2. So when you reflect it, it will become +2. And I think you all catch it, especially since this is revision from last week. The X coordinate for C remains -4, but the Y coordinate becomes the opposite, +8. And let's plot these points now, and let's see if it actually looks like a reflection in the X-axis. What does A become? I'm going to plot A first. A prime, -12, -2. -12 on the X, +2. This is A prime, -12, +2. Let's plot B prime, -2, +2. -2 on the X and +2 on the Y. B prime. And then C prime, -4, +8. -4 on the X-axis, +8 on the Y-axis. If we connect these points, doesn't it look like a reflection in the X-axis? And I can prove that that is actually correct. Remember, if you are a certain amount of meters or a certain distance on one side of the mirror, inside the mirror, you look the same distance. Look at it. The red line is the mirror, right? And it's basically, this is the distance from the mirror, and B prime is the same distance on the other side. Even for C prime, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks on this side, and on the other side, it's what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's equidistant or same distance on either side of the mirror. And you can count it instead to get out the question, right? You can say C was how much on this side? 1, 2, 3, 4 until it hits the mirror, and then you count 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another way of doing it. But to me, this is the easiest way. You just remember when you're reflecting something in the X-axis, the X coordinates remain the same, but the Y coordinates become the opposite. The other way of doing this, and don't worry, I'm not going to make you do all of it, is to use the matrices method. If you wanted to reflect something in the X-axis, last week I gave you about 7 or 8 matrices to memorize by heart. Is this matrix here the one that reflects in the X-axis? -1, 0, 0, 1. Is that the matrix that reflects points in the X-axis? Look back in the notes, look back in the notes. I'm trying, no guys, I'm trying to trick you. That's not, it looks like the reflection in the X-axis. But if you look carefully, the minus sign is by the wrong position. It's supposed to be down by this one here. It's real easy to mix up. And all you have to do is take this matrix and multiply it by point A. Remember, point A is -12, -2. But when it's time to multiply it, you write it vertical. You put the -12 on top, and the Y coordinate goes underneath. And I guarantee you, if you take this matrix, which is supposed to memorize for the exam, and multiply it by this, you will get the same answer over here. You will get the same exact answer. You will get -12, +2. In fact, what this matrix does, it keeps the X coordinate the same and makes the Y coordinate the opposite. Okay? Right. Now, just a clear up question, right? Will we always have the easy method to choose from? Like, you see how the first method is always the easiest method? I'm letting you all know. The questions will get more complicated than this, right? Sometimes the questions become so complicated, you cannot use the easy method again, or it doesn't make sense to count the blocks. Sometimes, and you always see examples, when you're forced to use the matrices. Like the matrices is the only reasonable way to get out the question quickly enough. All right, but be patient and you will see things, harder questions come up. Let's move on. So that's a revision question on the reflection in the x-axis. Let's continue with our friend here. It seems that Santiago has arrived in Jamaica, safe from the law in Spain. So while in Jamaica, he heard rumors that a cave was used by Columbus, right, to hide his treasure. After many years of hiring the locals, remember this is year 1655 or somewhere around there, to help him explore the caves finally found, right? That's right, to explore the caves. And it seems he finally found that fabled cave. Let's read what's going on. He told the locals to wait for him while he explored the cave. Do you think that they are going to wait on him? Or do you think they're just going to abandon him? Because I have a good feeling he already paid them, and them don't care. All right. Well, we're going to see what happens, right? Right. So let's do the opposite type of question now. Let's reflect something not in the x-axis, but reflect something in which axis? The y-axis, okay? The y-axis is the vertical line, right? So I just want to write it in here in case I know most of you all know what the y-axis is. Tell me something, right? If this is the mirror, if the y-axis is the mirror, doesn't it make sense that the reflection will be somewhere on this side here? It has to be on this side. Do you all think you all can get the answer using this note here? Remember, when you reflect something in the x-axis, that's the previous question, the x-coordinate remains the same, but the y-coordinate becomes the opposite. So if we are reflecting it in the y-axis, you notice the note is just the opposite of the previous note. You will notice that the y-coordinates remain the same, but it's the x-coordinates this time that will become the opposite. Do you all think you all can send the answers for A prime, B prime, and C prime using that simple note now? Right? Let me just write back the coordinates of A, B, and C properly. Right now, the coordinates of A is -2, 1. The coordinates of B on the diagram is -2, 6. And the coordinates of C is -4, 2. What will they change to after it's reflected in the y-axis this time? Give me a chance to send your answers on the chat there. Remember, the first one is always x, the second one is always y. First one is always x, second one is always the y. Okay. Take a 20 seconds. So according to the note, the y coordinates, let me see there. The y coordinates remain the same. So that's to fast track it, right? Remember, the y coordinate is the second one, right? So the 1, the 6, and the 2 will stay the same. 1, 6, and 2. But it's the x coordinates that become the opposite. So if the x coordinate here is -2, when you reflect it in the y-axis, you get +2. And when the x in this one is -2 for B, you also get another +2. And for point C, the x coordinate is -4. He will become the opposite. So he's +4. And let me plot those points. And let's see if it really, really looks like a reflection in the y-axis. Point A prime becomes what? 2, how much? 1. So that's A prime there. I write it in 2, 1. B prime is 2, 6. 2 on the x, 6 on the y. That's Mr. B prime 2, 6. And C prime is 4, 2. 4 on the x, and we just go up a little bit to 2. Does it look like a reflection in the the y-axis? And it looking like kind of the opposite? And if you count the blocks for C, 1, 2, 3, 4. On the other side of the mirror, which is the y-axis, it's also 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, it's equidistant on either side. Right? Now, to me, this is the easy way of doing it, right? But if you wanted to use the matrices method, you would have to go to your notes, right? Where you have to find the matrix that reflects things in the y-axis, which is this matrix here. -1, 0, 0, 1. You see where the minus sign is for this one? And you would take this matrix and multiply by each point individually. Like point A is -2, 1. You just write it vertical. Minus the x goes on top, the y goes underneath. And I guarantee you, if you take this matrix and multiply by point A, you would get back the same exact answer. That matrix just simply keeps the y coordinates the same, but makes the x coordinate the opposite. That's all the matrix will do. Right? Right. And one thing, remember, when you're plotting the new points, A prime, B prime, and C prime, you have to write the primer, you have to write the dash, because A prime is different from A. A prime is the reflection of A. You must put that prime. All right. So make a note, guys. I want everyone to take down this for me. Take down these words, this sentence, reflection about the y-axis, and take down the green note to go with it. Because that note tells you how to reflect something in the y-axis via the easy method. You do not have to draw the graph. Let me know when you are finished, and we will move on. All right, so here we have a slightly different situation. I want everyone to look at this, right? We know how to reflect something about the y-axis. This is the matrix here that I just mentioned. And this question, we just did it. But I want you to look at how this question is slightly different from the previous question. In the last question, you were asked to reflect it in the y-axis. The y-axis is the line just below this arrow. To reflect something about the x-axis, sorry, the y-axis, I know I'm saying it over and over, you would just simply what? Make the x coordinates the opposite, but the y coordinates would remain the same. Or you could use the matrices method. Either one is going to give you the same answer. Sometimes you're not going to have an easy way to do it or a matrices way to do it. I want you all to pretend that this red line is the mirror now. Tell me something. If I ask you to reflect this triangle in this mirror, which is the red line, is this question a reflection about the y-axis? Is it okay for me to label this question as a reflection about the y-axis? In other words, is the red line the y-axis? No, right? The clear answer to that is no. And last week, I showed you all how to name a line like this. It's a special line in maths. Anybody wants to tell me the equation or the name of this red line? What's the name of that red line? Look back in your notes. What do you call a pure vertical line going through 1 on the x-axis? Remember, this is the x-axis here, right? And that red line is slicing 1, the number 1 on the x-axis. What's the equation of that line? Right, I see you all are remembering. The equation, let me use red for red, so we color code it, right? This red line, his equation is x is equal to 1. X equal to 1 is not the same thing as the y-axis. This here is the y-axis. X equal to 1 is kind of shifted to the right. So if I ask you to reflect this triangle in the line x equal to 1, for the CXC syllabus, there is not a matrix for that. You have a matrix to reflect something in the y-axis. You do not have a special matrix to reflect something in the line x is equal to 1. The only way of doing this question for the CXC syllabus is to use the common sense method, where we have to count the amount of blocks. So let me handle you with point A. This is point A, right? Right now, point A is -2, 1. Let me write it back a little bigger for you guys. Point A is -2, write it a little better, -2, +1. That's this point here. Remember, how much blocks is he on this side before he hits the mirror? 1, 2, 3. You all see that? I'm going to do it back. He starts here. This is the mirror. Let's move horizontally. 1, 2, 3. So we take 3 steps to hit the mirror. Won't it be the same amount of steps on the other side of the mirror? So from this side of the mirror, count 1, 2, 3. And we will end up here. And this will be A prime. And his coordinates, if you look, I know it's kind of hard to see, will be 4, 1. Look at it. 1 here on the y and 4 on the x. For the x coordinate and then the y coordinate. You think you all could do point B and point C for me? Count how much steps it takes horizontally, move horizontally, and count how much steps it takes to reach the mirror. Then replicate it on the other side of the mirror. And see if you can approximate the points for me. All right? Good luck and send the answers, right? For point B, 1, we start in here. I'm going to highlight it. We step 1, 2, 3. On the other side, he would also be 1, 2, 3. Right? 3 steps from till you hit the mirror, 3 steps on the other side. Mr. B prime will be what? 4 on the x and 8. No, 4 on the x and 6 on the y. 4 + 6. Point C. Oh, I wonder how much steps he's from the mirror. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. He is 5 steps from the red mirror. You're paying attention to the red line. So that means on the other side, he is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. C prime here. His points are going to be what? 6 +2. Right? And if you join this up, you will notice that it looks like, I know I kind of missed it there, sorry. That's a terrible drawing. Oh, I'm going to connect it properly. All right. You all will notice that both triangles, they kind of look the opposite, and both of them are the same distance from the red line. There is not a matrix. There is no matrix way to do this question. You all have a matrix to do a reflection in the y-axis. This red line is not the y-axis. I mean, he looks kind of like the y-axis, but he's not the real y-axis. Great. So look for your error. Move on. Right. Just a quick question. In the exam, right? You see how I drew in this line, and we kind of reason out the equation of that line is x is equal to 1. And you see how I physically drew in the red line for you? Do you think the examiner will always be nice enough to draw in the line for you? No, right? The examiner could just tell you the equation of the line. He could just say, hey, do a reflection in the line, x is equal to 1. But he didn't draw in the line as yet. You have to know that x is equal to 1 is a vertical line going through what on the x-axis? 1. So it will be your job sometimes to physically draw in the line. It all depends on how evil the examiner is feeling that year, right? And if the examiner doesn't tell you to draw the line, do you think it's a good idea to still draw in the line? Like if the examiner just tell you to reflect it in the line x equal to 1, do you think drawing in the line will make it easier for you or harder for you? I think it will make it easier for you, right? So I think you should draw in the line so you will make things easier for you, because I know if I can physically see the mirror, I know I will be able to imagine my answer, or how you say, reason out my answer much easier, right? Nobody likes to imagine something. When it's physically in front of you, it's easier, right? Right. Let's move on. Let's move on. All right, so we're continuing with the story here, right? Let's go. So remember, Bondigo is in, so Santiago is in the cave now, and how lucky of him. He has found the treasure. His life is complete now. He has all the money in the world, right? Unfortunately, and this is a real earthquake, right? You all can go back in the history books. There was, in the year 1692, there was this massive earthquake in Jamaica, a real earthquake. And unfortunately, Santiago was in the cave at that point in time, right? And of course, the earthquake caused the whole cave to crumble in. That's the cave there, crumbled in, and he's trapped inside. So unfortunately, this is how Santiago met his end, right? That's Santiago there, and he starved to death in the cave. But while he was dying, he held on to his toy ship that his son gave him. All right. So now you all know the end of the story. This is how he met his end and why he liked that toy boat so much. Right. Apparently, the men that was supposed to wait on him either didn't wait on him or they were unable to move the rocks. Right. Right. Don't worry, we have another story coming up. So that's the end of poor Santiago. How about this question? I want you all to try this question and send your answers on the chat. This time we do not have a triangle. We have a quadrilateral. You all want to reflect this in the line x is equal to -1. Remember, x equal to -1 is a vertical line going through what? -1. This time it's going through -1 on the x-axis. So this red line is your mirror. You cannot use a matrix C method to do this. There is no matrix on the CXC syllabus that allows you to reflect something in a specific line like x is equal to -1. If it was a reflection in the y-axis, there was a matrix to do that. Do you all think you all can do this and send the answer on the chat? What you want to do, start with point A. and count how much steps it takes to reach the mirror. And once you hit the mirror, replicate the same amount of steps on the other side. I know you're going to have to zoom in a little bit or put your eyes close to your screen so you can physically count the steps. That's the best we can do today. All right, guys. So send your answers for A, B, C, and D. And let's see if you can reflect something in the line x is equal to -1. Get ready to be bored. Get ready to hear me count. All right. Let's start with point A. We start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It takes 6 steps to hit the mirror. Once we hit the mirror, we start counting 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It ended up somewhere here. A prime looking like 5, 5. Anybody got that correct? A prime, 5, 5. Right? I have a good feeling some people went up to the y-axis by mistake. Yeah? Remember, the y-axis is not the mirror, it's the red line. Ignore that y-axis. You don't care about Mr. Y-axis. You care about the line x is equal to -1. He is the mirror. Right? That is what I realized some people doing. They're forgetting that the mirror is the red line. Let's start B. 1, 2, and we hit the mirror. So on the other side of the mirror, he is 1, 2. He ended up here. B prime looks like 1, 5. It doesn't matter if you get it wrong, and guys, once you can see your mistake, take it as a win, right? Nobody gets everything 100% correct in maths. You will make mistakes. The question is, can you see your mistake? Let's go for point C. 1 step, 2 steps. It only takes 2 steps to hit the mirror on the other side. 1, 2. 1, 1. On point D. Start over here. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4. It takes 4 steps to hit that mirror. So on the other side, 1, 2, 3, 4. Point D, D prime. He looking like 3, 1. Now, if I connect this up, it will look like, it actually does look like a reflection. Isn't the shape kind of reversed? Right. So let's try another question. Look at this horizontal line. Let's see if you all can do this without my help. You want to reflect this in the line y is equal to -2. Remember, this is my y-axis, and this line here is my x-axis. The line y equals to -2 is a horizontal line that I explained last week, going through what on the y-axis? -2. That's -2 there. So this red line is the mirror. Now, if you're reflecting something in the x-axis, there is a matrix C to do that. We saw that this morning. But if you're reflecting it in something that is not the x-axis or something that's not the y-axis, the only method to do it is to count the amount of blocks. You think y'all can do this question for me? Count how much blocks it takes to reach the mirror, but you gotta count vertically this time because your mirror is horizontal. So to reach the mirror, you have to move vertical. Let's see what you guys come up with, right? For A prime, B prime, and C prime. You should be able to get it out. Of course, I will work it out after, but let's see what you guys are made of here. Okay? Let me see if I can use a different color here. Let me use green. So we're going to start with point A, right? And remember, well, we have to count how much steps we have to take to reach the mirror. So let me see, I'm going to use curved lines, right? So it might be easier to see. 1, 2. I don't know if that actually helps. Yes, Sama. 1, 2. It takes 2 steps to reach the mirror. So that means on the other side, it's supposed to be what? 1, 2. And it brings us to this point here. Point. Now, this point, if you notice, is on the x-axis. So A prime will be 3 on the x, but it doesn't have any height because it's on the x-axis. So it's 3, 0. Let's do point B. Point B is almost the same thing. You have to go how much steps? 1, 2. So on the other side of the mirror, he will be 1, 2. He will end up on the x-axis as well. So B prime is 10, 0. When something is on the x-axis itself, the y value will always be 0. For point C, I'm going to get a different color here. 1, 2, 3, 4. For point C, we have to go upwards 4 steps before we hit the mirror. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the other side, once we reach the mirror, we go up by how much? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. C prime ends up here. 10 on the x, 2 on the y. Let's connect those points. And that's our answer. How much people got it correct? Everything correct. Look for your errors. Remember I said, once you could spot your error, take it as a win. All right, so we go back, well, we come back to the cemetery. And remember why we talk to the ghost, right? The ghost usually tells us, well, we're a detective. And usually the ghosts, after we listen to their life story, they usually give us a hint of some crime that's going to take place in the village. So let's see what Santiago has to tell us. Right, so he has told us that there will be a robbery on Frederick Street on Thursday. So we as detectives will take that piece of information and try to stop the robbery. All right, you're ready for an exam? How much of you all are ready for a small quiz on everything we have done from last week? All right, do me a favor. Just take a 30 seconds and scroll through your notes. Just take us and scroll through all your notes. First question, and everybody has the answer, right? It's getting scary. Oh, that's no skeleton there. Prepare yourself for the most heuristic quiz ever. First question. In which country did Sir Mondego Santiago get into a fight at the bar? Let's see if you all have been really paying attention from last week. I actually don't care about the matrices or the transformations at this point. I care about the story. Did you answer correct? Did you get Spain was the answer. Remember, Santiago is from Spain and he was running away from Spain because he got in a fight and he killed someone by mistake, right? Next question. After he fled to Jamaica to escape the law, he heard someone had hidden treasure in a cave. Who was that someone? Yeah, I know you all thought it was math question. That was just me trying to mislead you all. If you said Christopher Columbus or just Columbus, you are correct, right? Next question. In what year, this is the hardest question, in what year did the earthquake occur that trapped Santiago in the cave with his toy boat? I know most people are going to get this wrong because this is the actual number you have to remember. This is probably the closest thing to maths, closest maths question we have on the quiz here today. Let's see. The answer was 1692. How much people got all three questions correct? If you did, you have passed the test. If you got two questions, it's still a pass. If you got one or less correct, you have failed. All right, guys. I hope you all enjoyed that quiz there. If quizzes like that could be just like that in real life for exams. All right, let's move on. All right. So now we are going to do a reflection in a slanted mirror. Now, slanted mirrors. Now, growing up, right, in your room or whatnot, you all are mostly accustomed with vertical mirrors, or some people have seen mirrors on the ground, like when they go to those amusement parks and whatnot. So most people, their imagination, like if you use your imagination, you could imagine something being reflected in a vertical mirror, or you can imagine something being reflected in a horizontal mirror. Remember this line from last week? A slanted diagonal line like this, going upwards. This is diagonally upwards. The equation of this line I gave you and a drawing of it last week is y is equal to x. You are going to pretend that this slanted line is a mirror. All right? Believe it or not, it's really, really difficult to imagine how a reflection would look in a slanted mirror. It's not as easy as you think. I want you all to try to imagine this. You don't do any calculations. Imagine this blue triangle being reflected in that slanted mirror called y is equal to x. Imagine it. How much of you all think that the image would look something like this? How much of you all can imagine that triangle would look something like that? Would it look like that? Or would it look like, I don't know, what will it look like this? How do you all think it will look, right? It's kind of hard to imagine, right? Luckily, there is a kind of shortcut way to reflect something in this special mirror. Y is equal to x. And that's this note here. This is the easy way of doing it. And afterwards, we'll use a matrices method. Whenever you are reflecting something in the line y is equal to x, you just have to switch the x and y value. Let me show you an example of that. Right now, point A is how much? Where's point A? Point A is minus 2, 1. It's written here. Minus 2, positive 1. If we were to reflect that in the line y equals to x, you just have to memorize this note. What do? We switch the x and y value. We just switch the positions. Remember, this is x and this is y, right? The y will jump in front and the x will jump behind. And I know I said it over and over, but the x and y just switch positions. So that means the 1 will go here and the minus 2 will go here. Can you really ask for anything easier in maths? You just switch the positions. He jump here and he jump here. Let me plot that point. The new point is how much? 1. Well, 1 is here. Now, if here's 0 and here's 2, 1 will be in the middle, right? 1 and I go down to minus 2. This here is A prime. 1 minus 2. Do you all think you all can do B and C for me? You can't really ask for anything easier in maths than this. When you're reflecting something in this line, you just switch the X and Y positions. In case you can't see the points properly, right now B is -2, 4, and point C is -8, 4. Send your answers on the chat for B prime and C prime. But this is easy, right? I'm going to spend too much time on this. Point B, we switch the values. The 4 will jump in front and the -2 will jump after. Same thing for C prime. 4 jumps in front and the -8 jumps behind. 4, -8. So B prime is how much? 4. And I go down to -2. And point C is 4. Well, -8 can't fit, but I just have to extend it here. Let me just extend my graph here to go down to how much? -8, not a problem. C prime is 4 -8. 4, and we go down to what? -8. And I just, join it up, right? How much people got this? And this is, you see, this kind of hard to imagine, right? So this is how the reflection looks. The nose point, C is pointing to the left, and in the reflection, C is pointing downwards. So this one is be kind of hard to imagine how the reflection will look. In my opinion, I personally cannot imagine it. Right? That is the answer, though. All right. So this is the one that we just said. And this is nothing new. This is the same question. And if we wanted to reflect it in the line y is equal to x, you can also use this matrix, the same matrix that I just told you about. Whether you use the yellow note or you use the matrix, you're going to get the same exact answer. So let's move on, right? That's the same thing we just discussed. All right, guys, time to go back to the cemetery and speak to some other ghosts. So let's see. Oh, this spirit appears. Let's see what her issue is. Okay. All right. So this ghost is named Elizabeth, and she was born in the year 1666. And her most precious item when she was alive, or the thing that was most important to her, was a bottle with a note in it. I want you all to guess two things about Elizabeth. How did Elizabeth meet her end? In other words, how do you think she died? And why that bottle with the note was the most important thing to her? I love to hear the guesses. Someone said she was a pirate. Someone says she died in prison. Someone says she died in a shipwreck. Someone said she was executed. Another person said she was the Queen of England. What? Somebody had a good one. She was poisoned. She fall off her bed at night and hit her head and died. What? All right, I guess we're gonna find out what Elizabeth's story is, right? Let's see if any of you all are correct. All right, so this one here, right? And now a lot of people, about at least 5 people, are mixing up the line y is equal to x and y is equal to minus x. Y equal to x slopes upwards like this. Y equals to minus x, which is this line here, slopes downwards. In your books, right, there is a matrix for a reflection in a line y equals to x, and that matrix was what? 0, 1, 1, 0. We just mentioned that. But do you think if you are reflecting something in a line y is equal to minus x, which is a totally different type of mirror, do you think it's going to be the same matrix? Well, what do you all think? It's definitely not going to be the same matrix. The matrix to reflect something in a line y equals to minus x is 0, minus 1, minus 1, 0, right? This one has minus signs by the 1. It's different. If you look at it carefully, I know all of them look so similar. That's why you have to start learning them off now. I'll give you all a story. I remember when I was in Form 5, my teacher told me, learn it off, learn it off, learn it off. And my head was hard, right? I never listened, to tell you the truth. And the day before the exam, I tried to cram those formulas and I fall apart. I could not tell the difference between any of them. And the only reason I got through the exam is because this question just didn't come for the exam that year. That was the only reason I was able to get a 1 in maths. The moral of the story is here, don't be like me. Learn it off. It takes time for everything to sink in. If you try to rush it and you don't see the clear differences, you're going to mix it up in the exam. I know what I'm telling you from experience, right? All right. Yeah. I know some of you are wondering, why am I a maths teacher now? Yeah. I read in the comments. All right. Here's the thing now. To reflect something in the line y is equal to minus x, the note is slightly different. The note is slightly different. You switch the values of x and y, but the signs become the opposite. So you're not only switching the positions of x and y, you make all the signs the opposite. You think I could do one and you all could do the rest? For example, let me start off with A. A is how much? Minus 6 minus 2, right? If I were to reflect it in a line y is equal to minus x, this is what we would get. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to switch the positions, but the signs become the opposite. So minus 2 will jump in front, but he will become the opposite as well. Minus 2 jumps in front and becomes positive 2. And then minus 6 jumps to the back, and his sign becomes the opposite. So the opposite of minus 6 is positive 6. You think you all can memorize that pattern? Switch and make the signs the opposite. It's not the easiest thing in maths, but it's not the hardest thing in maths. All right? All right. See, and then I will draw it. I will put down my answers, and then I will draw it out for you guys, right? Pretty easy, right? Minus 2 jumps in front, minus 2 jumps to the back. And both of them signs become the opposite. So you're going to end up with 2 and another 2. For point C, minus 4 jumps in front, but he also becomes the opposite. So minus 4 becomes positive 4. And minus 2 jumps behind, and he becomes the opposite also. The opposite of minus 2 is positive 2. Let's plot the points. A prime is 2, 6. 2 on the x-axis, 6 on the y. A prime is 2, 6. B prime is 2, 2. 2, 2. C prime, 4, 2. 4 on the x, 2 on the y. And that's it, guys. That's my triangle, my reflection. Right? Based on the answers that I'm reading, it seems that everyone got it correct. right? And like I mentioned, let me say you didn't want to use the yellow note to switch and change the signs. You could have taken all the points and multiplied it by 0, -1, -1, 0, which is a long way of doing it. And if you use this matrix, you would have gotten the same exact answers, but wasted a lot of time, precious time, in the exam. Okay, like I said, I will only use the matrices method if the teacher tells me to use the matrices method. Other than that, shortest possible method. Right? So take down anything you need to take down, screenshot, whatever you need to do. Right? But I'm going to give you all half a minute and I'm going to switch the slide. The class gets weirder and weirder. All right. Let's move on. Let's see what's going on in Elizabeth's life here. We have two ships engaging in battle. One of the ship looks like what? A pirate ship being attacked by, I think that's a Spanish ship there. So let's see what's going on here. Elizabeth starts her story. I was a pirate on the boat called the Devil's Dutchman. We were at sea when one of the Queen's English ships attacked us. Apparently, she fell overboard while her ship lost the battle and sank. So apparently the English ship rescued her, but not out of good heart. They only rescued her so they could punish her. All right, so let's see what happens later on. All right. So here is it's a kind of weird type of question, right? It's a reflection through the origin. Now, this one is hard to imagine, right? To reflect something about the origin, you could use this matrix, -1, 0, 0. Notice the -1 and zeros in a different order. Or you could use the green note. Whenever you're reflecting something through the origin, but basically, this here is the origin. What will happen is that the shape goes through this very small mirror. The mirror is not a line, it's a point. It will go through this and go to the other side. But it's kind of hard to imagine. And this is one of them I just want you to memorize. To reflect something through the origin, the X and Y values remain in the same position. So you don't switch the X and Y values. They remain in the same position, but only their signs become the opposite. Let me start you off with one. Right now, the point A is -2, 1. It's on the screen there, -2, 1. If the examiner were to tell you to reflect it about the origin or through the origin, it will become A prime. The X and Y would stay in the same positions. The 2 will stay here and the 1 will stay right there. But you just make each one the opposite. -2 becomes +2 and +1 becomes -1. You think you all could do the rest for me? I don't think this is too hard. Calculate the points for a reflection through the origin for me. I write it down the points over here in case they can't see it, right? -4 plus. I know it's hard to see up here. Calculate B prime and C prime. I just say it back, right? The X and Y coordinates remain in the same position. Just look at each value now and just make it the opposite. And you're good to go. Easy. -2 becomes +2. +4 becomes what? -4. C prime here. C is -4, +4. So -4 becomes +4. +4 becomes -4. Let's plot these points and see what our reflection looks like. A prime is 2 minus 1, 2 on the x, minus 1 on the y. B prime is 2 minus 4, 2. That's not one. Something is blocking my view here. 2, and we go down to minus 4. C prime, 4 minus 4, 4, and we go down to minus 4. And that's our reflection through the origin, right? Right, so based on the answers, right, most people got it correct. Actually, I would say everyone got it correct. I don't think I saw any wrong answers, right? All right, so do me a favor, screenshot if you need to, but I want you to take down this note here. At least take down this. That's how you reflect something through the origin. You have two choices. Use the matrices or remember the note in green. Let me know when you guys are finished. All right, so let's see what's going on with Elizabeth here. All right, so apparently the English ship marooned her on a rock. In case you all don't know what maroon means, that's when you usually take a prisoner and you leave them on a small rocky island. So they have no escape now. So the prisoner, how you say, starves to death, right? So it's not a nice death. With no island or land on the horizon, right? She couldn't even swim. Because remember, when she's on that isolated rock, she's just seeing the ocean surrounding her. You won't know which way to swim to reach land. But then she saw a bottle with a message float up to her. What do you all think? But obviously she grabs the bottle with the message in it. Take a guess, guys. What do you all think that bottle with the note contained? What information do you think the note had in it? Some people say a map. Some people say money, like a treasure map or something. A magic wish. That's a good one. I wish I came up with that one. Right? A love letter, a map of poison, a warning, the direction of land. All right, so let's see. So apparently the message in the note was from another shipwrecked sailor who was also stranded on a nearby island. So somewhere by that rock, there's another island. The note even had directions. Realizing that the island was to the south of the rock, she immediately started to swim with hopes that she would see the island. All right, so things are looking up for Elizabeth there, right? All right. So guys, I know it's almost 1:45, and I know I'm leaving you all on a cliffhanger